have one more performer for you before we break for intermission. Is everybody ready for one more? Fantastic. We have another one of our co-producers performing for you tonight. We're going to be joined by Lewis Evans. But of course, before I let anybody go on stage tonight, I have to tell you a story about them. So here's my story about Lewis. Right after I met Lewis, he was walking down the street in San Francisco and he found an abandoned diary. It was obviously out of somebody's backpack or a purse or something that had been stolen, and it had been discarded because it was of no worth, at least in a resale sense. So Lewis, being the person that he is, immediately dedicated himself to the search for the diary's owner. And he wanted to know who it might belong to, but he also didn't want to violate their privacy by reading too much of it. So he just skimmed it, looking for identifying information. And the more he read, the more he realized that the person who wrote this book had experiences that no person he knew ever had. There were stories in there from what happens after you die. There were stories from the other side of the light, from the other side of the darkness. But Lewis did not give up, because Lewis is not the kind of person who gives up. So he found them anyway. He found them wandering as a ghost in San Francisco, encouraging people off the bridge, encouraging people on to BART when they've had too much to drink, encouraging people to keep going when they otherwise might have stopped. Lewis found this ghost, and he held the diary in his hands. And he said, "Listen, I don't know if you still want this. I'm not sure if it means anything to you now that you don't have a body." And the ghost said, "It's the only thing that means anything now that I don't have a body." The method of Lewis Evans' death will be, he will argue himself out of existence. Vocal Cliterary Salon, I give you Lewis Evans.
That story actually happened to me. Friends, tonight I'll be reading you a poem called The Nubbin. It might sound a little similar to a poem you're familiar with, Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, and there's an interesting story behind that. You see, Edgar Allan Poe had a sister, and actually she was the poetic genius. Her work was super edgy. Edgar just ripped off her poems, bowdlerized them, slapped his name on them, and got them published. Very little of her work survives, her original work, but The Nubbin was recently rediscovered in an attic in Baltimore, and I'd like to share it with you today. Well, actually, for all of you in the audience who might be writing term papers or book reports, I feel obliged to say that that's not true. I did have a sister, her name was Rowena, but as far as we know, his compositions were original. But that story sure seemed plausible because, let's be honest, that shit happens all of the time. An extremely abbreviated list of women who received little or no credit for work stolen by their male colleagues and/or relatives would include, in no particular order, Ada Lovelace, inventor of the computer; Colette, Nobel Prize nominated French author; Rosalind Franklin, discoverer of DNA; Alice Guy, cinema pioneer; Lise Meitner, discoverer of nuclear fission; Sister Rosetta Tharpe, inventor of rock and roll; Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, author of Frankenstein; Millicent Patrick, creator of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I based my first Cliterary Salon story on, by the way. Nettie Stevens, discoverer of sex chromosomes; Dr. Xiong Wu, theoretical physicist; Margaret Keane, painter; Jocelyn Bell Burnell, discoverer of pulsars; Trotula of Salerno, the first gynecologist; Elizabeth McGee, inventor of the board game Monopoly; Esther Lederberg, microbiologist; Tabitha Babbitt, inventor of the circular saw; Anna Arnold Hedgeman, organizer of the March on Washington; Hedy Lamarr, inventor of Wi-Fi, and countless others. And those are just the names we know about. Recommended most of those names to me. Remaining names come from lists that were compiled by primarily female journalists, including Jessica Samikow, Amanda Ferris, Lara Rutherford Morrison, and Rachel Epstein. Also some dudes who I'm just gonna skip. This preamble exists because of thoughtful guidance of the Cliterary Salon co-producers, including Meg, Lauren, and Maggie. And the verse that follows sounds as good as it does, only due to the talented and poetical editing of Katie Morton. And finally, actually, Poe borrowed the metrical scheme for The Raven from Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So, that extremely upbeat message, let's get to the poem. Just one thing before we begin. The refrain of this poem is vibrator. And after about stanza 8 or so, it comes in at the end of every stanza. Please do say it along with me if the spirit moves.
Give us a cue.
I'll make it.
It'll look suggestive.
I'll look like a vibrator's about to happen. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I fingered, weak and weary, perusing a quaint and curious volume of forgotten porn, while I nodded, barely fapping, suddenly there came a tapping and a bizzing, beeping, prapping, quite like a phone outside my door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, with an angry bird's high score. Only this and nothing more. I remember now I'm sober. It was in the damp October, and my row of gothy chokers cast their shadows on the floor. Eagerly I wished for more, and vainly had I sought to fornicate from late to early, fingering my hurly-burly. Now my fingers crooked, curly, scrabbled, scratched, and left me sore. Sans orgasm quested for. And the silken, sad, uncertain squelching of my natural merkin bored me, lured me to outlandish pleasures never sought before. So then, spurred on by my thirstin, stood I by the door, outburstin. "'Tis some visitor might burst in through my chamber door. My ever naughty chamber door, come thou in and get some more." My noise grew wetter, hesitation I'd regret. "Sir," or I said I, or "Madam, your good giving gameness I implore, for the fact is I was fapping, merely feigning to be napping, when so gently you came tapping at my chamber door. So I hope you'll come inside." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness staring, long I stood there wondering, wearing neither robe nor fancy nightie. I stood there at the open door. But the silence wasn't. That was one of Katie's lines, by the way, so make a noise. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and not a word was then spoken as I fingered idly more. I twiddled yawning, and the echoes murmured back of squelch and snore, only these and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, my thirst still higher, yearning, burning. Soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Yet no satisfaction's coming. 'Tis my luck, I'm sure, therefore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." Open here I flung the window, came my noble guest within, though I knew it not from present days, nor neither ancient days of yore. Stately was this unknown nubbin, shapely too, and made for lovin'. All the quiver it was inching briskly across the floor. Slickly it came squirming over across the shining floor. Nothing seemed to please it more. Then this stately nib beguiles my thirsty fancy into smiles, with its sensual writhing dance, and the slender hood it wore. O nub of stature short and meaty, I tender thou this sweet entreaty, O throbbing, squirming, lovin', nubbin, twerking so upon the floor. Tell me how I may best please you, slake your thirst and give you more. Quoth the nubbin, "Vibrator." So we got it, great. Much I hearing unmouthed mouthfuls speak so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. I knew a vibe is felt twixt persons, and a nail torn leaves you cursin', but an is quite uncertain. Conjuncted, what in heaven's for? What's this thing named vibrator? Whither, wherefore, vibrator? Hush up now, you rowdy throng, burst not into learned song, fear you not that before long this buzzing pathway I'd explore. This loving, buzzing, vibing pathway I would delve, plumb, and explore. For though innocency breeding ignorance did fill my being, still I couldn't help but feeling aroused and inflamed, dare not ignore that siren song, sung Vibrator! Great. And the nubbin coming closer, hood withdrawn and showing more. Oh, this nubbin spoke so softly. My heart's beating is heard only this and one thing more, the single word of vibrator. What mean you, nub, by obscure saying? Are you for real or merely playing? Tell me the truth, why movest thou to me, O nubbin, rumbling swiftly across the floor? Quoth the nubbin, "Vibrator." That's quite enough, come no closer, spake I, and it moved no more. As the nub obeyed my warning, between us a trust was forming, a wordless trust, a sweet rapport. So then I spoke to it more. "Very well, come hither, nubbin, show me our great mutual love, and with thy lovely pleats and more, I wanted all its love galore." Quoth the nubbin, "Vibrator." "Come," I said, lust run amok, "come thou and just fuck me up. Come now, make me not implore." Ever faithful to my yearnings came the nubbin, passions burning, red and flushed from skin to core. Yet as the nubbin came much nearer, I saw its hoodless form much clearer still the tool it bore. "What's this witchy wand you're bearing?" Quoth the nubbin, "Vibrator." Raised it then the wand up high, so that its form I might espy. Shaped it was like rod or thigh, crowned as if with knob of door. Just so it seemed, this vibrator. Then the nubbin touched a button, and oh so lively it was jumpin', and a buzzing, beepin', bumpin' issued forth none could ignore. Such buzzing, beepin', bumpin', jumpin' from the nubbins. Vibrator. Then my interest, keenly whetted, spurred me on. I must explore, must peruse the abstruse nature of the thing it called vibrator. The nub gave it to my keeping, and with trial and some beeping, I counted settings, 5, 10, and more. Such a wondrous gift you've brought me, which we might conjoined explore. The nubbin nodded.
Vibrator!
Gently I pressed it to myself. Suddenly I felt such wealth of warm sensation, skin to core, from nape of neck to scalp to floor. I let it run, scalp, shoulders, more. My sole of foot craved vibrator. Though this practice was most pleasing, the nubbin needed even more. Twixt my legs it now was nestled as the wand, and as the wand I closer bore, gleeful quoth it,
Vibrator!
Ooh, I cooed. Too stately humming. I said, to sounds of thrumming. Oh, quoth I when buzz increased. Garg! That's also Katie. I said when pleasure ceased. The hurts that issued from Hitachi made me blush from nose to crotchy. My core, I quivered, quaked, and kicked for more. Wand near nubbin, circling gentle, till as if quite accidental, I came and came and came some more. Then nub rumbled oracular, now you have felt
Vibrator!
And that nubbin, ever meaty, lives between my thighs so sweetly. Abroad it need not travel questing wide for pleasure anymore. For when that nubbin's feeling needy, or indeed is merely greedy, its pleasure thirst can be fed easy with the mighty
Vibrator!
And my sadly futile fapping, squelching, thumbling, grinding, scratching, troubles my dim and private chambers not once, no never more. Now that I have felt
Vibrator!
Thank you all for collaborating.